You ever have one of those days where you think the world's finally figured itself out and shining? Music's playing, nothing can touch you, and then, out of nowhere, reality punches you in the gut? Yeah, that happened. And for Amani Carter, 15 years old, a smile wide enough to swallow the summer, that punch came from a man in uniform, in front of everyone, in broad daylight, just for daring to exist. If you're wondering where I'm from, or why this story matters, you might want to sit down, because once you hear what happened, you'll realize it's not just about one girl or one city. It's about all of us. That Saturday felt like a promised clear sky, laughter bouncing through the park, joggers weaving around toddlers and dogs, couples sneaking kisses under the trees. Amani was in the thick of it, hoodie halfway unzipped, hair freshly braided, backpack slung over one shoulder like she owned the weekend. Her friends circled around her, swapping sneakers and inside jokes, soaking up that bubble of innocence you get right before life decides you've had enough. It wasn't quiet, it wasn't tense until Officer Kyle Grayson strode in, all badge and boots, and something mean behind his eyes, scanning the crowd for trouble. Or, what he thought looked like trouble. He didn't bother with hellos. "Move along," he barked, voice slicing through their laughter like barbed wire. And just like that, you could feel every head duck, every foot shuffle everyone except Amani. Not out of rebellion, more like, dignity. She stood still, maybe out of habit, maybe because she'd been told her whole life to make herself smaller, and still it never seemed to be enough. Grayson's stare fixed on her, seeing not a kid, but a threat. "What's in the bag?" he demanded, but it wasn't really a question. She answered anyway, quiet but firm. "Just school stuff?" He grabbed for it, pulled back. Just a reflex, and that's what happened. His hand clamped her wrist, twisted her arm, and with a sound that made everyone freeze a crack, sharp as a gun shot, snapped it right there on the grass. The whole park stopped. Music cut. A can rolled away and settled. Someone screamed, but it wasn't her. Amani just crumpled, breath stuck in her throat, eyes wide, trying to make sense of how 1 second you're safe and the next, you're not even human to someone with a badge. The people watched, mothers holding kids closer, teens clutching phones, old men shaking their heads like they'd seen this before. No one moved, not yet. The officer stood there, chest heaving, acting like he'd just put down a riot instead of breaking a kid. But Amani, flat on the grass, didn't cry. She looked up at him, not pleading, just seeing him for what he was, and something shifted behind her eyes. She wasn't erased, not yet. With her free hand, trembling, she texted her father just 3 words. "He hurt me." And on the other side of the country, those words detonated Malik Carter's world. Now, Malik wasn't just any father. Former world champ, hard as granite in the ring, soft as dawn when it came to his little girl. The kind of dad who taught you how to jab, but also how to breathe through the storms. When that message hit, it wasn't rage that took him first, it was silence. A cold, steady storm. Within hours, he was on a plane, replaying every frame of the video as it tore through social media, grainy, brutal, undeniable. He watched the officer's face, the crowd's paralysis, and decided, this fight, he couldn't lose. By the time Alex stepped off that plane and back into the city, the whole country was talking. Protests had started. News vans camped outside the hospital. Amani lay in bed, arm wrapped in plaster, eyes burning with something nobody could quite name. Nina Carter, civil rights attorney, legal storm in heels, set up camp at her office, turning affidavits and video clips into weapons. With her and Andre Delgado, street organizer and protest legend, the movement roared to life. Marches, hashtags, vigils, and for the first time, people stepping up who'd always stayed silent. And here's where it gets real. One of those witnesses was Sophia Navarro, a mom who'd been at the park, seen it all, and spent days crushed by guilt. She could have stayed anonymous, could have deleted the footage, told herself it wasn't her business. But watching her own daughter color quietly at home, Sophia broke. She picked up the phone, called the Carter family, and said, "I'll testify. I won't be silent anymore." And just like that, the story twisted. A white mother with nothing to gain and everything to lose put her own safety on the line. The system tried to smear her, of course. But her courage, her refusal to look away changed everything. The trial turned the city upside down. The defense picked apart Amani's life, tried to paint her as a problem, not a child. They said procedure, reasonable force, all the lines you'd expect. But Sophia's testimony and that grainy footage cut right through the lies. The crowd outside the courthouse swelled. The mayor tried to spin it. Leaked memos showed officials scrambling to paint Malik as a threat, as if defending your kid was a crime. But the mask-slipped officer Grayson, under cross, admitted he'd panicked at the sight of a black girl's hoodie. The courtroom erupted. For the first time, the system couldn't hide. The verdict came down like thunder guilty. Not just for Amani, but for every name left out of the headlines, for every silence that let injustice win. Grayson was taken away in cuffs. Officials resigned. The city passed new rules. Across the country, people quoted Amani's line, "They're not afraid of what I said. They're afraid I didn't need to scream to be heard." But it didn't end there. Hate mail came. Counter-protests flared. Some called the verdict a witch hunt. But when Amani stepped onto the stage at the national rally, surrounded by a sea of faces, her father at her side, Sophia, trembling but fierce, Nina and Andre, holding the line, she didn't need a microphone. She spoke, and the whole world leaned in. I have a right to exist. I didn't want to be a hashtag, but since I am lit, it means something. You know what I mean? That's the power of one voice refusing to be quiet. It turned a moment of pain into a movement. Teachers quoted her, parents talked to their kids, police took a knee, even the judge who'd once looked so distant wiped away a tear. But for Amani, the victory wasn't in the verdict or the applause, it was in knowing she'd stood, that she was never alone again. So now, I'm asking you, where do you stand? When you see injustice, do you speak up, or do you wait for someone braver? Because the truth is, silence is easy. But courage, even the smallest kind, can break the chain. Drop your thoughts below. What would you have done in that park? What does justice look like where you live? Hit like if this story moved you. And subscribe if you want more voices that refuse to be silenced. See you next time.